What's up, everyone? I'm Resolved Veteran. If you've never seen any of my videos before, I'm a veteran that makes mental health videos to bring the 22 a day epidemic to light. And with that being said, today I actually want to discuss something that's extremely important to me. And I really hesitated making this video because it could be considered political. And I do not do political commentary. However, we have some issues that is going to be detrimental to the veteran community. And this will actually be really hard to discuss. I want to be able to be very transparent in this video, so all the snippets that you're going to end up seeing are going to be directly taken from an article written on military.com by a gentleman named Brandon Weil. And I will have the link to that article down in the description of this video. Now, why I'm making this video is because the VA has made, in all of their wisdom, a policy change that is going to affect upwards of 6 million veterans. And that's going to cause a lot of issues. Now, you might be wondering what that policy change may be. Well, they decided that if you are on any kind of medication or treatment that is showing that you're improving for your disability, whatever that may be, that they're going to use that to reduce your percentage rating. That's not a good idea. So on the screen, you can read this, but I'll read it too. Over a decade, veterans and their attorneys operated under precedent that largely protected disability ratings from being reduced just because medication made symptoms more manageable. The key case was Jones versus Shinseki, a 2012 ruling by the U.S. Court of Appeals for Veterans Claims that held that the VA could not factor in medications benefits unless the specific rating criteria for that condition mentioned medication. So what that means is unless your condition specifically mentions medications to improve your situation, your rating cannot be reduced, period. And for example, if you have PTSD, that's a condition that is never going to go away. That is a lifelong condition. So if you get medication for PTSD, your rating cannot be reduced if you show improvement from that medication for that condition. So now we're going to discuss what it means in practice. Again, it's on the screen, but I'll read it for you. The practical concern raised by advocates is straightforward. A veteran whose PTSD is partially controlled by medication may now appear less disabled during a compensation and pension exam than they would without treatment. The same applies to a veteran whose knee pain is managed by anti-inflammatories or whose blood pressure is controlled by daily pills. Under the previous court precedent, examiners were required to consider what that disability would look like without medication. Under the new rule, the rating is based on how the veteran presents at the time of the exam, medication and all. And here is another snippet from the same part of that article, and it says, in March 2025, the same court extended that protection in Ingram v. Collins, ruling that VA examiners evaluating musculoskeletal conditions must attempt to determine baseline severity without medication. That decision applied to a veteran who had been rated 20% for a back disability and 10% for an ankle condition while taking prescription painkillers, including opioids. Now, when you take opioids, you're doing it for pain management. And for a lot of veterans, a lot of these conditions that they have, they're not going to just go away. It would be the equivalent of you having multiple sclerosis and your doctor giving you medication for your MS and then saying, "Oh, well, you're getting better, so I guess you're not disabled anymore." Does that make sense to you? Because it doesn't to any of us. So that was the protections that were given to us by court precedent. Now, there is another issue. Now, here's the real issue that cropped up is that Mr. Doug Collins, who's the secretary of the VA, this guy right here, made this policy change by bypassing both of those court precedents as well as bypassing a congressional review period of 90 days. So now all we have are the comments that are available to us that we can make until April 20th. You might be thinking to yourself why I believe this is dangerous. RV, that doesn't make any sense. This is not as dangerous as you make it seem like it is. Well, it goes against the Hippocratic Oath. Morally and ethically, this is just bankrupt, right? The Hippocratic Oath says do no harm to your patient, and this does a lot of harm. And very rarely do I tend to agree with high-ranking officers, but here's retired Army Colonel Charles Garbarino, a physician who served 3 tours in Iraq, told the Stars and Stripes he worries that many veterans will stop taking their medications rather than risk a lower rating, particularly those prescribed drugs for post-traumatic stress disorder. And he said about this, a lot of veterans prescribed medication for their service-related medical problems will just cut it off rather than lose compensation. That's a horrible idea. Remember, I said earlier that PTSD is a condition that's permanent. It's never going to go away. You can learn how to manage your symptoms way better than, at first, but it's a condition that is always going to be there, and you are going to have setbacks and trouble. I know. Now, there are varying degrees of severity when it comes to PTSD. Mine is not as bad as it could possibly be, but there are veterans out there who take medications that are still in the process of their evaluations. And if this policy change is definitely going to make it almost impossible for them to get the rating that they absolutely need to have, which is 100% permanent and total. And if you've never met anyone who has PTSD, it's very debilitating. So my thoughts definitely go out to my brothers and sisters who are trying to have this process done and are trying their best to trust the system when the system is actively trying to harm them. But this is extremely, extremely harmful to veterans. And yeah, I get the idea that they're trying to save some money. The VA is grossly underfunded, but harming your patients is not the way to go. But I do want to get an idea of what the rest of you think. Do you think this is going to be harmful? Do you think it's going to save the VA a couple bucks? They are grossly underfunded as is, like I said. And I think this is just doing significant harm and destroying any trust that the veteran community had left in the VA. That's just my personal opinion. What are yours? I want you all to remember, just take it one step, one day at a time. And as always, keep your chin up and your eyes forward.